guys, Mona here. Welcome back to yet another Q&A. Today we are going to be talking about both weightlifting and the mental side of weightlifting and when training gets really tough. So to listen up to the awesome questions I got this week, stay tuned.
Oh, you make me want to talk back to you.
Just to give you a little recap of the week. So we are in New Zealand and we are back into lockdown. So which means back to home workouts. So you can actually go and see what workouts I'm doing daily with basically just my weightlifting bar, plate, and a squat rack if you have one as a bonus. You can go to my Instagram at Powerful Pretorius and you can go and follow my workouts. So if you are in a similar situation, or maybe you just want to do some home workouts, even if you're not in lockdown and you have a barbell and plates, feel free to follow my workouts. Jumping straight into the questions. So the first question I got, which was a weightlifting one: what is my favorite weightlifting exercise and how many 6 out of 6 competitions have I had? So firstly, my favorite weightlifting exercise, this very often varies depending on my training cycle, also depending on what goes well. So in my 21 years of doing weightlifting, there has been many exercises that I favored and many exercises that I really dislike. I would probably say my favorite at the moment would be just snatches, just plain classical snatches. Because I don't really get to do them that often now. So I really do miss doing them. Okay, how many 6 out of 6 performances have I had? So again, being in the sport for 21 years, it's very hard to remember every single competition if I've had between 5 and 8 competitions a year, which equals a lot of competitions. I do have one favorite one that I remember and will always remember. That was my Commonwealth Games performance where I got a 6 out of 6. That was just the pinnacle point of like just showing how all the hard work and all the training just pays off. At that time I was doing weightlifting for about 18 years. I've been wanting to be on the podium for a Commonwealth Games basically my whole weightlifting career. And I finally got it, and it just felt like whatever was put on the bar that day, I could lift. I know many lifters have experienced that in a competition setting, and like if you know weightlifting, you have only 3 attempts in the snatch and 3 attempts in the clean and jerk. So even if you could go heavier on the day, unfortunately you couldn't. So you have to be really particular on the 3 attempts that you choose, and it's always just so important to make sure, especially that you get your first attempts, just to make sure that there's a total on the board. I do actually have a second competition which I remember, which was another 6 out of 6 performance for me, and that was my very first weightlifting world championships in 2015 with my coach in America. I actually went up to the States to prepare for 3 months with my coach. And yeah, I mean, it was amazing time. The whole 3 months just went into eat, sleep, think, everything weightlifting, and everything just worked out perfectly on game day. This doesn't always happen. Sometimes you can have the best training cycles in the world and then come to the competition stage and things just doesn't work out as planned. And this is just part of a weightlifter's life. It's nothing necessarily on the athlete. These things just happen. So those are my 2 favorite competitions where I had 6 out of 6 on the international stage, broke some South African records, was on the podium, and honestly one of the best feelings in the world. Second question I got: how do you warm up to get to your working percentages? Now this would often vary. And I normally warm up a bit longer for my snatches than I would for my clean and jerks, and also kind of just depending on how I feel that day, how the weather feels, how my body feels, my joints, etc. if it's a really good day and my body's feeling nice and warm, I would always run through my mobility first. After my mobility, I would jump onto the bar and do a really nice barbell warm-up to make sure that my barbell warm-up matches my first weightlifting exercise or primary exercise that I'm doing of that day. So for example, if I was doing snatches, I would do some sort of a barbell warm-up like snatch pulls, muscle snatches, drop snatches, just to get the muscles firing and activated, and just getting me ready for, making sure that I do the best with that lift that I'm doing that day. So normally how I like warming up, so say for example, I work up to 90 kilogram snatches for the day. I would normally, like I said, from the barbell, then I would move on to some weights. I would go about 35 kilograms. I would sometimes just do 2 sets of 3. From 35, I would jump to 45. I would do maybe another 1 or 2 sets of 2 or 3 reps. I would jump then from 45 to 55, do 2 reps. This is now to say if I had to do, say, 90 for 5 sets of 1. Then I would go from 55 to 65. There was a time where I would jump from 65 kilos to 75 kilos, just depending on how strong I feel. If I don't feel that explosive or that strong yet, or that warm when I am at that weight, I would just break it down a little bit and I would go 65, 70. And then sometimes when I get into my after 75 kilos, I would jump in incremental plates. So I would go say 75 and then 78 kgs, 81 kgs, 84, 87, and that's 90. That's a pretty long warm-up, but because the snatches are so technical, I just like to warm up a lot better for snatches. And normally by the time I've done my first exercise, when I get to clean and jerks, I tend to think a lot less. Confusing my words. I tend to think a lot less when I go into clean and jerks, so my warm-up is a lot quicker. I would often just jump from the barbell to 55 to 75, 85, 95, 100, and then go 105, 110, just depending on what I'm doing. But yeah, that is a pretty quick example of how I would jump in my snatches compared to my clean and jerks to get to my working sets. I do change it up always, just because I don't want to just fall into a routine where I do the same weights and the same repetitions every single training session. So I change it up a bit. Like I said, I will sometimes use incremental plates, and instead of jumping say from 75 kgs to 80, I would go maybe 73, 78, 81, like that, just to shock the system a bit, keep the system awake, keep you thinking, keep you challenged, and not, like I said, just do the same routine every single day. With weightlifting, if you've done it for years and years, it's very monotonous. Things can be the same for weeks in and weeks out, so you have to find these little ways and warm-ups to keep the mind interested, to keep you excited, but to also keep you actually doing your best with every single lift. If you just do the same weights every single day and you start to not put in emphasis, yes, you will definitely not get stronger. So this is a great way to just challenge yourself a bit, outside of the normal program, but without disrupting your program. Next question I got, this is a mental skills question about weightlifting. How to push through a mental block or a plateau. What is my advice? So the first thing I would definitely do is I would find out what is the mental block, what is stopping you from getting over that mental block. So if it's a weightlifting example, say for example your mental block is 70 kgs snatch. The best thing that you can do is, if you've tried months in and months out to try and break that 70 kgs barrier, or even get yourself to 70, and you've just cut short or missed it every single time, just. And the weights before that was actually feeling really easy. That means we need to change things up a bit. I'm a big fan of then again using my incremental plates. So for example, if I knew I would jump normally 60, 65, 70, miss it, this time I would change things up a bit and I would jump 63 kgs, 66 kgs, maybe 68 kgs, and then 71 kgs, skipping that 70 kgs as a whole. This is actually how I got over some of my weightlifting plateaus. I think my first weightlifting plateau that I was ever battling with was 80, and then after that it was 90. So it seems to be that round numbers. And how I actually got over it was actually just jumping in 1 kilos. So when I got to 85 snatch, for example, when my plateau was 90, I would literally get to 85 and do 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91. And by adding just that 1 kilo, I just felt like every single rep was so similar, and my brain told me that it's the same weight on the bar. What does 1 kilo make? Or how does it make it? It doesn't make a difference really. So that's kind of how I got over that plateaus. If it's different and it's not weightlifting related, the best thing you can always do is, if you've got a big goal and you feel like you're just battling to reach that goal, break that bigger goal into smaller goals. Once you've broken it down into smaller goals, have an action plan on how to achieve those smaller goals. And I can almost guarantee you that before you know it, you're going to achieve that bigger goal without even knowing that you achieved it. I hope that answers your question regarding a plateau. Be kind to yourself, but also do figure out what is holding you back. If it's mental self-talk, if it's you're in a chatter and when you get to a certain weight you are really negative, or when you get to a certain weight and you get really stressed out. Another thing that could help you is breathing techniques, but start practicing this in training and not just, for example, in a competition setting, because it will just make a massive difference if you start implementing these little ways to help you cope in your training sessions, in order to make sure that when you get to big events or big competitions, you have mastered these coping skills to help you overcome these mental barriers. Next question, very much a mental skills and motivation question. I really like this one because it can kind of go both ways when you think about it, because you need to find out the root problem and then you can start getting the motivation to overcome this. So the question is, how to hold onto your motivation when your strength cycle is down or even crashes. Now, the first thing that I would do is I would find out, why did my strength cycle crash? If you're working with a coach, I would definitely communicate this to the coach and find out together what could have been the problem, because it could just be that you have a lot going on in life. On the mental side of things, you're just distracted, or you are overworked, or you've got a lot going on at home with family, especially with COVID and lockdowns and all of those things. Just take those things into consideration. There could be a lot of stress going on. It could be that you are potentially overtrained, and you just need to maybe take a small step back in order to take 2 steps forward. So definitely find out what is the root cause of why your strength cycle has crashed. Once you have found out the root cause, then I believe you can move forward and find the motivation to get over it. If you're just not feeling motivated, you could even change the exercises up a bit, make it interesting, throw in some extra accessories. If you have really long training sessions, try making your training sessions a little bit shorter. If you are training 6 days a week, maybe just train for the next 2 weeks, 4 sessions a week, just to help you recover. At the end of the day, you need to just figure out how to get over this on the mental side of things, but also if it's physical and your body is just tired. Sometimes you just need to take, like I said, that one step back just in order to get recovered, and then you bounce back stronger. Here is another mental skills question. I love this question. Tips to stay focused when you are living some emotional things. At the end of the day, we are all human beings and we all feel things. We are not just machines. We can't just push ourselves to the limit all the time. We will also break. So we need to be able to deal with these emotional things in order to move forward. And unfortunately, you can have a lot of coping skills or coping mechanisms when you put your emotional stuff aside, you go into your training session, but at the end of the day, it could just be like putting a band-aid on and you're not actually fixing the problem. So fixing the root problem is definitely the main thing that you should be focusing on. Another thing that's very important is you need to be able to learn to focus on the things that you can control. If it's something that is out of your control, and it could be, something that's happening with family outside of, work life or training life, it could be good to actually speak to someone about it. Maybe if you actually speak to someone, just actually, having someone there that could be there to listen, or give you advice. Could be a professional, a sports psychologist, or a mental skills coach, just in order to be there for you and just help you when things get really stressed. So don't be afraid to reach out to a professional. It's very important, firstly. So you need to recognize how deep the emotional issues or problems are in order to try and heal them. Sometimes it's just impossible to try and heal these emotional things by yourself. So having someone to talk to is very important. So I will stress that. Like I said, if it's family stuff, it's very difficult to always just brush it off because, family is family. So the best thing that you can do is, like I said, speak to someone, make sure there's someone there for you. If it's family members and maybe it's, them offloading problems onto you, maybe it's time to set some boundaries just to kind of let them know that, this is all that you can handle, that your cup is full and that it's just getting too much, so that they can also understand. I know sometimes it makes it difficult. This is definitely a very deep issue. And like I said, I would first and foremost have a professional I can talk to actually find out how deep does this emotional issue go, and then how you guys can dissect it in order to move forward so that it doesn't affect other areas in your life. Guys, this is all for my Q&A today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I would also love if you can comment below with what you thought of my video, and if you have any weightlifting or mental skills question, I'd love to cover in my next videos. So thank you very much for all the support.